Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about pricing your gigs. It might sound like a simple concept, but there's a lot more that goes into it than you would think. I'm specifically going to be talking about pricing gigs on Fiverr, since that's where a lot of new freelancers start. But you could probably apply these tips to any situation you're in. I'm also going to talk about how to know when to raise your prices and what those prices should be as well. So stick around if you're at that point where you're starting to want to know what to do down the line. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is research. And this is really something you should do whenever you're doing anything with freelancing is just research what else is going on. When I started out and I was trying to figure out my prices, I made a spreadsheet for it and I went through and I wrote down everyone's usernames on Fiverr. And then I had 3 columns for each gig package that they would have. And for those of you that don't know, on Fiverr, you can have up to 3 gig packages on each gig that you make. And then you can price these differently so that you can offer more or less features depending on how much money people spend on your gig. So I would recommend making a spreadsheet with the username that you can go back and see it for future reference. And then 3 columns with the lowest tier, middle tier, and highest tier. And then you can list the price for each one and the features they offer. And then it's just a lot easier to look and compare and see where you need to be in terms of where everyone else is. And you should really be looking at what the top sellers are doing as well as the new sellers. So look at the people with the most reviews to their names and see what features they're offering their customers, because you're really going to want to match those features so that you can stay competitive and gain some traction on the platform. When you're looking at the new sellers, you're going to want to at least match them, but I would suggest trying to find ways to beat them. And that can be through either pricing or features. And I'll talk about how to beat them in both categories. So when you're creating your gig packages, one thing to keep in mind is that most of your business is probably going to come from that middle tier gig package. So that should really be the one that you create to be enticing to the majority of people that come in. The lowest level package is really good as a form of advertising, I guess. It'll get people in the door and looking at your gig. But once they're in the door, you're going to want to try and upsell them to that middle package. And you can do that through pricing and features. As far as features go, try and find ways to make each package enticing. Your bottom tier package probably shouldn't be a big focus beyond bringing people in the door. So if you're doing podcast editing, maybe your bottom tier package can give 30 minutes of editing. Your middle tier package can offer up to an hour of editing and podcast mixing. So that's going to be enough for the vast majority of people. They're going to come in and say, yeah, I've got this 45-minute long podcast. I want it to sound good. I'll go with this middle tier, even if they came in because of your low tier price that you had. A small amount of people will go for that high tier package. So that's going to cost more money, but you're also going to have the features to back up that price. So if your middle tier is 60 minutes of editing and mixing, your top tier can be anything they could want. It could be an unlimited length podcast, mixing. You can do all the ID3 tagging. You can write out a paragraph long description of the episode for when they throw this up online. Anything you can think of to make this top package enticing, do it. And you're not going to get a lot of people coming in buying it, but when somebody does, the paycheck is going to be really good. You have most people coming in are going to go for that middle package because they're looking for that middle ground between value and features. And a lot of them aren't going to have a ton of money, so they would rather get a good amount of features and then spend some time on their own doing things like writing out that description for the episode. But some people are going to have that money and they're going to want to buy the whole thing and save on their own time so that they have to do absolutely nothing once they get the file back. It's just ready for them to put up. Um, so just make sure that each package has its own offerings that make it enticing. Find a way to make people go for that middle package and make that best for mass audiences, and then do one premium package with anything you can think of. Um, it might sound like a lot of work when somebody buys that premium package, but the price will be great. And that leads me to the next point of how do you decide on the pricing? When you start out on Fiverr, chances are you're going to have to do bottom of the barrel pricing. That's just the reality. It's not fair and it's not worth the time you're going to spend doing this work for the amount of money you get. But because Fiverr is so overcrowded with so many freelancers, it's been a race to the bottom. So when you start out doing something like podcast editing, you might have to have your bottom tier be $5 an hour because other people are offering that price already. And if you're just another new seller with no reviews to your name, people can go anywhere. And if somebody is offering a cheaper service, there's no way they're even going to look at you. So to get your start, you are going to have to start with bottom of the barrel prices, $5 or $10 for something like podcast editing. But just look at your field. If you're not doing podcast editing, look at what other new sellers are offering and match that. You probably won't be able to beat it because it's already at the bottom, but that's where beating them in features comes in. If they offer a feature that's only in their middle and high categories, bump that down to your bottom category so that even though you're not competitive on price, you're still competitive on features and you're compelling. And this is really a juggling act because you don't want to put so many features in your bottom tier or even your middle tier that nobody goes for that middle or high tier. So you want to find a good middle ground between amount of features that'll pull people in and also the features at the higher levels that'll entice people to be upsold to your more expensive gig packages. If your bottom tier is $5, make your middle tier $10 or $15. And then your top tier can be a lot higher. Do $30 or $45. There's a common marketing tactic that if there are three products with different price points, most people will go for that middle price because they see it as the best value for the money. Not a lot of people are going to go for that bottom price. They're going to see that bargain item. They're going to see this middle tier item that's a little more expensive, but has a good amount to offer above this bottom priced item. And they're going to go for this middle priced. Not a lot of people are going to go for the top price, but because it's so expensive, it'll make up for the volume that it's not getting. So don't be afraid to price your premium package a little higher than you think you should. It's never going to sell a lot, but when it does, it'll help you feel better about having to do all this work for $5 or $10, But the good news is that you're not going to have to stay at these rock bottom prices forever. This is really just a way to get people in the door, get some reviews behind your name, and gain a little bit of standing so that you do eventually get more work coming in. And on Fiverr, they have a level system, so everyone starts off as a new seller. And then eventually, once you hit the criteria, you'll reach level 1 and level 2, and then be a pro seller. To reach a level 1 seller from a new seller, I think you have to have like $400 in sales and do 20 different orders. I think something like that. There's 5 or 6 criteria, but those are the main ones. So by the time you reach level 1, you'll have reviews to your name from selling at these bargain level prices. This is really the toughest time for you as a new seller on Fiverr is starting out. It's gaining that momentum. Once you gain this momentum, you'll have a client base that's hopefully returning to you. And if not, or if you still need more customers coming in, more customers will come in because you're more trustworthy because of those reviews that you have. So you can start raising your prices. Um, so when do you know when it's time to raise your prices? Well, I mean, one way is when you reach level 1 or you have a bunch of reviews to your name. The second way that I used when I started out is when I was getting more work than I could handle. So if you're spending 10 hours a week freelancing and you start getting orders in and you're getting more orders than you can handle in that 10 hours, it's time to raise your prices because that means there's more demand than there is for the supply that you have, which is your hours. So what do you do in that situation? Same thing that always happens in a capitalist world is you raise your prices. Um, y- your orders might go down a little bit, but because you're charging more, it'll even out. And that's really what you want. You want to do less work for more money. And you need to just keep raising your prices until you're overloaded again. You'll eventually reach a point where you raise your price and you have a fine amount of work coming in. And then you have to make the decision on if you want to go full time. Um, Eventually, it's going to reach a point where you can't just keep raising your prices anymore. You're going to have to raise the amount of hours you spend if you want to make more money. Um, and that's a scary part is knowing when to quit your day job. But what I would recommend is to put aside any money you make freelancing when you're just working part time into a separate savings account. And then you have something to use as a cushion when you decide to take the plunge and go full time with it. There might be, some weeks or month or two where you're working to get up to that point of having 40 hours a week of clients wanting your services. So you might need to fall back on that cushion, but it won't be for long and you will be able to go full time sooner than you think. It's just that the plunge is the scariest part and gaining that momentum at the beginning is the hardest part. But once you do it, you'll succeed. It's not as hard as you think. And I guarantee it'll be worth it because then you'll be working on your own and you can set your hours. And that's one of the best parts of freelancing. So I hope you got something out of this video. I hope it helped you know how to price things. It's really research. It's really selling yourself on features and price and knowing when you can um, improve upon what your competition is doing or match upon what the experienced sellers are doing because that's going to look better for you when you offer all the features of these high level sellers for a cheaper price. That's going to help your momentum and you want to do anything you can at the beginning to help that momentum. um, so stick around if you want to hear more tips on how to get going. I have a lot more videos to come. And give me a like and a subscribe if you want to see more of those because that helps me. And it's all about teamwork here. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.